Hello and good evening from Matt Dean at Blundell Park. We're live on BBC Radio Humberside and BBC Sounds from Menemis Suite. In conjunction with the Mariners, we're bringing you a Grimsby Town Fans Forum.
BBC Radio Humberside Sports.
Thank you. Delighted that you're with us either in person or on the radio this tea time. We're with you for the next 55 minutes. We've assembled an esteemed panel for you with no expense spared this evening because none's been used. This is the BBC after all, you understand. Plenty of questions lined up for our first trio, ranging from the recent investment in the club, possible sell-ons for past players, to the playing budget and much more. Please give a very warm welcome to Chair Andrew Pettit, Vice Chair Jason Stockwood and Club CEO Polly Bancroft. And from the playing side, approaching a year in the job now, with a few more grey hairs, I think it's probably fair to say, please put your hands together for head coach David Artell. Now, if you've got a question, please keep it concise and to the point, rather than going round the houses via Grimsby Road, Barcross Street, Harrington Street, Neville Street, back to Grimsby Road to McMenary's via Blundell Avenue. We've got stacks of questions waiting, so without further ado, let's get into our Grimsby Town Fans Forum live from Blundell Park.
Getting you closer to your club. To your club. BBC Radio Humberside Sports.
The enthusiasm seemed to wane away a little bit there. Thanks, Dave, in the front row, for giving us a little chair there. Thanks to the club for hosting us this evening and for you lot for getting a ticket. These are always valuable evenings, and you basically get the opportunity to ask any question of those that run your club. Anything. No holds barred, just about. Andrew, how are you finding things as chair in your first few months?
That's good. Yeah, no, I'm very happy to have taken the role and taken on from Jason. I mean, we run the club together, so there really hasn't been a lot of change on a day-to-day basis. But we divide responsibility between us and continue to do that. So.
Yeah. Are you busy though on a weekly basis? How do you fit it in?
Absolutely. No, I do. I'm quite organised in terms of my time, but yes, certainly spend a lot of time where necessary, and then. Thankfully have Polly and an amazing team at the club to run things on a day-to-day basis. Good.
David, I mentioned in the intro there, nearly a year in the job. How's it been for you?
I think it's been better as it's gone along. I think that's probably fair to say. I think the first 6 weeks were a challenge on and off the pitch. There was lots going on. The transfer window was upon us, the busy festive period, the January, February that we'd probably all rather forget, and then we sort of pivoted, made sure we stayed in the league, and then we've got a decent pre-season, and I think we're now reaping the very early fruit of what we're trying to do.
We've got Megan on roving mic duty from the club, so if you've got a question, please stick up your hand. And we've got plenty of questions that have been sent through in advance. This is from Pete Rose, who says, obviously with the new investment announced, we as fans immediately hope that will transfers to the playing budget. In reality, what does this mean for the club in terms of our financial outlook, and how will the additional investment be utilised? And that's one for you, Andrew.
Great. Well, first of all, we're very, very grateful, Jason and I, for the new investors getting involved with the club. We always said from the outset that we didn't want to go on this journey alone, and we wanted to bring other investors along on the journey as we set out the vision. In terms of the cash that's being injected, it's clearly going into the budgets that were set sometime before the investment was even made. So playing budget was set. We have been able to put a little bit more into that playing budget, and also obviously there's quite a lot of work that's going on at Blundell Park, which no doubt we'll get to as well. So from a financial perspective, it's all about stability. We want to make sure that we've got a club that is sustainable in the long term, that's frankly sustainable without owner injections on a regular basis. And that means working through not just the cost and expense side of the club, but also the commercial side, the income side, and hopefully with success on the pitch, getting a lot more fans through the door.
Anybody else have a question on the investment? There are plenty more in front of me, but if you do have one, do stick up your hand. I'll move on to the next question. This is from Andy Gillings. Can you explain how the shares in the club work, and does it contribute towards our transfer funds, for example, signing players?
So what's actually happened technically is we've raised money at 1878 Partners, which is Jason and I's holding company, and then that cash has been injected to acquire new shares in the club. All new shares have come in pari passu with the existing shares, so basically equal with the existing shares, held by the Mariners Trust and by hundreds of individual fans as well, from around about. So from our perspective, it's just a straightforward equity injection. I think one important thing to note, which we did around the similar time, is the original funding that Jason and I put into the club was acquiring John Fenty shares, and then the rest of the capital we invested as a loan. All subsequent cash that's been invested has been invested as a loan to the club. Over the summer, we got shareholder approval to convert those loans into equity in the club, which mean that essentially the club doesn't owe the money to as on demand or doesn't owe the money to 1878. It's now shares in the club, so it puts the club on a much sounder financial footing from a sort of balance sheet perspective. And then the new cash that's being invested from the new investors is being invested into new shares in the club as well. So essentially what's happening is 1878, from starting out as a majority holder, is now a slightly larger majority holder of shares in the club. But most importantly, the club doesn't owe 1878 any money.
Stephen Holden says, whilst I'm happy there is new investment and appreciate some may want to stay anonymous, but is this a lack of transparency that was previously mentioned that we wouldn't come up against?
I think we don't just want to invite one or two investors to the club. We want to have as wide a wider group as possible, and we respect people's views to want to be anonymous or otherwise. And we gave all the investors the opportunity to be named or not, and two of them, James and Miles, said that they would like to be named or were happy to be named. And the other two new shareholders said not for the time being. Not to say in the future they won't be named, but that's their wishes at this stage, and we respect that. And going forward, again, we'll ask that question at the relevant time.
And there's some American investment, isn't there?
There is.
How did that come about? Can you share some details on that?
Yeah, it came about via Jason's network in conversations with an American group who were sports fans first and foremost. Didn't realise at the time they were Grimsby Town fans, but now they are, and they'll be coming to the club for a game in the next month or so as well. So we're looking forward to welcoming them to the club. So we'll get the stars and stripes out in the centre circle and look forward to growing that American investor base.
Yeah, not quite Carlisle just yet. Jason, what? I thought of the Americans that could have.
Yeah, we just had an opportunity to do my business contacts, do people that I know, and it's important that structure's slightly complicated, it might sound it, but really it's just the holding company sits over the football club, so we're trying to do all the investment in the holding company so it protects the football club over time. And what it should be said is that part of the reason for that anonymity is people have noticed that sometimes it can be quite fractious, particularly online, and so the people that got involved in that know we want to respect that. But again, the people that are coming on that into 1878 are a really small percentage of that shareholding as well. So that's another way we're trying to spend time getting to know people really well. So a couple of people have historical connections that we've announced publicly, but a couple of people don't. And so part of the reason for putting through the whole co and them being anonymous is we want to spend time getting to know them, that they might have an interest in taking the larger share, at which point it would be public. We would make sure it would be public. But as many small shareholders, and we know them through business connections rather than personal connections, it felt like a sensible way to make sure the club's protected.
Question from the floor. Who would like to ask one? This gentleman down the front here. Don't be shy tonight, by the way. This is your opportunity to fire a question at those that run your club.
Hi there, it's Dan Bradley. Just like to ask you a question. I ask the same every year, but what's the latest with the training ground, please?
You've been sat in the same place last year. We'll just do a recording next year.
I think it's nearly the same answer as last year. There is an identified location, but there is still a legal dispute ongoing, which we're a third party to, so we can't. It's out of our hands. But yes, there is work going on still behind the scenes.
The only thing I'd add to that is that we said we wouldn't announce stuff publicly and fully till we can commit to getting it done and paying for it. It got leaked. There's a lot of people talking about the location. So part of our way of operating our businesses, and we think it's important for the football clubs. There's been a lot of false promises over the years, and so identifying the ground, getting there, and being able to commit to the capital to do the job as well was what we intended. That's slightly different in a football club, that people want to talk about it publicly and rightly. It's it's your club, but it's not ideal for us because there are a number of steps to go through that are out of our hands to make that happen. But you'll be the first to hear about it as soon as we've got something that's tangible and funded. Importantly, we can announce it.
Are you close to making any public announcement?
Not at the moment, no. I mean, the legal contest is going to go on and on. That's nothing to do with us. And then there's a capital raise that we need to do as well. So there's a number of steps. Ideally, when you're doing a deal like this, you wouldn't get to this point of talking about it publicly, but it's it's in the public domain now. So we'll get there as soon as we can.
Thanks, Danny, for your question.
See you next year, Danny.
Who repeats on the BBC, please? Another question from anybody on the floor? In the meantime, whilst you think about a question to ask, this is from Harry. Question for you, Jason. And Harry asks how you describe the budget given the new investment going into the club.
Is that Harry Clifton asking the question? He's dead to us, obviously, but he's not. Clearly, he's not. So what was the question?
It was a question about the budget given the new investment going into the club.
Well, it was the same answer that Andrew gave there, really. So part of it was to help with the operating expense that we've already budgeted for, and it saves Andrew and I having to dig in our pockets again, which was going to be problematic at some point, quite frankly. So part of it covers the OPEX for this year, part of it went into the playing budget and extended that a little bit as well. But yeah, it essentially covers the operating costs and also some of the adjustments that we'll make to CapEx for the main stand, some of the work we've got to do next summer as well.
Question for Andrew. While we appreciate figures may not be publicised, say Stephen Holden, is there any sell-on fees coming our way from John McAtee and Danilo Orsi sales? If not, were sell-on fees not included in deals?
We try to include sell-on fees wherever we possibly can in deals. It's of the transfers we've done so far. We have sell-on fees in the majority of those transactions, and of the ones you mentioned, there are sell-on clauses. Some clubs, for their own reasons, just will not accept any sell-on clauses, but mostly we've been able to achieve sell-on clauses, and it's not just those players. We've obviously also sold Camel Conti as well last year. So there's hopefully a number of sell-on clauses, sell-on fees to come, and again, some clubs are a little bit more sophisticated in how they negotiate them. Some clubs will only allow you to get paid based on the first transfer. Sometimes you can get it, as long as they're receiving money, you get a share of their money. It really depends on the individual negotiation, player by player, team by team.
What were the percentage sell-ons with those two players?
I don't think that's probably a bit too commercially sensitive to disclose, but
the fans will be wondering, so I'll ask the question.
Exactly.
Fair enough. Question from the floor. You've had time to think. There's a hand that's raised in the middle. Your name, sir?
It's Dave Bell.
Hi, Dave.
Yeah, talking about Conte, he went in the January window because of a release clause. Would it be an idea to have at least a year before the release clause becomes active? Is that possible, or?
Again, maybe I can't answer that bit because David wasn't here when the contract was signed. When we signed Camel under Paul Hurst, there was a lot of competition for his signature, and so that we did have to accept one or two things, including that provision that were less than ideal. But I think we'll all agree that even though we only had him for 6 months, he did contribute, and I think financially he'll hopefully contribute in the future as his career develops. So yeah, in an ideal world, we have minimum periods of time, but it really, again, it comes back to an individual deal by deal negotiation of any release clauses. I've said release clauses are much less common at our level.
Seemed like an age ago, doesn't it, now, that sale? But how was it for you, David, at the time?
When a player's got a release clause, I had this often in my previous role, and the club meets the release clause. Thank you very much for your time. Off you go. You've outstripped the growth of this football club, and they move on. And we wish them all the best. It's as simple as that. There's no. I was speaking to a lad called Perry and we sold to Cardiff yesterday. And he's doing great, and we wish him all the best. And and I spoke to Cam last week, the week before. He rang me out of the blue, on his way up to Burton. I think they were playing. Just he was obviously lonely on the coach, but it's like.
It's bum dial or something.
Maybe went. Hang on, who are you? You rung me, Cam. What can I do for you? I don't know, but when that kind of thing happens, the key thing is to make sure you evolve when you're ready for that as a football club. And I thought that bringing Curtis in, we didn't really suffer the loss of Cam. And obviously you want your best players for as long as you can, but if every player comes for 6 months and we make a lot of money on them, that's not a bad business model, or even especially if you replace them with better players or equally as good players.
How did you find managing it at the time? Because it was out there in the public domain for a short while, wasn't it? How did you find that?
That's part of the job. I don't think that's a difficult thing. There's far worse things to have to handle than a guy who thinks he's going on to make a few more bob in a different football club in the higher league. I think that's quite a nice positive thing. For us, it's the work behind the scenes that go on to make that loss of a player as smooth as possible. That's the key thing.
The bit that might be interesting to supporters is that we ended up doing that deal, but it's when agents get involved. As a personal view, and this is a personal view, he should have stayed. I think his development and the opportunity to be here for a year was key to us. But when an agent gets involved and starts to see they can make a fee and clubs are interested, so I ended up sitting. Sometimes we get involved with pre-poly with the deals, and I ended up getting in the middle of this one with the agent. It was clear that was the motivation. I think the player had an opportunity with a new manager and what we're going to do with him to stick around and improve here. Actually, I'm not saying he hasn't improved elsewhere, but one week he was keen to stick and stay, and when the agent was on the phone, suddenly a deal was done, and it's not how business normally is transacted. So it's a really odd way of working in the world of football. Is very different to anything else. So to Andrew's point, in an ideal world he would have stayed, and I actually think it would have been better for him, but as soon as there was a sniff of an extra fee and a bit more money, he was gone. So that's probably why he's calling you.
I had that conversation with probably 2 or 3 players in my previous role. I think it's futile, simply because players listen to their agents. I had players literally, I'd coached them at 6, 7 and 8 all the way through a crew, 12, 13, 16, and going, look, I'm not telling you because I want you to stay because I think it's the worst thing for you. I think it's the best thing for you. I've known you for 15 years. You've been with your agent 12 months, 3 months, whatever, 2 years. No, but he says I need to leave, so I'm leaving.
And I was going to promise not to talk about data tonight, but I'll just spoil it straight away. One of the things when we looked to hire David was that he ranked highly on the ability to improve players. And so that's a massive thing for us, is could we get a head coach that could come in that we knew with whatever raw materials he had, he could make them better. And that's not always the case at clubs as well. So with that in mind, Cam's a good example of that. I think he'd be a lot better player, as we've seen with some of our existing squad that have improved. I think he'd have been an outstanding player if he'd been working with David. So, but it's just interesting, that's the agent, and then what we were trying to do didn't quite align. So there we are.
This might sound a daft question, but how do you improve players when not all coaches do?
It's individual, without a shadow of a doubt. There's loads of things. So each player's got an individual development plan. We're due to review them as staff next week with the players. I think the key thing is to get to know them, make them feel really comfortable, make them feel that they can trust me, and actually make that happen. It's a relationship thing. It's there was a thing in Harvard Business Review, about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago now, that was saying, what do the Gen Zs want? They want autonomy in the role, so they don't want to be absolutely robotic. They want an opportunity to progress in the role, to develop, and they want the opportunity to progress beyond their current role. So that might be anything from get a move like Cam, but it might be go from a sub to a starter, if in like binary terms, if you like. It might go from playing 20 games to 40 games, that kind of thing. But actually improve your left foot, improve your shooting, whatever it might be. So there's all these things, and when you focus on development of individuals, and I'm providing my time, and it's exhausting at times, but when you're doing that for 20 players, and you have to delegate at times and all that to Sean and Ben, who are great, and Greg and Steve, when you're investing in people, I think you get loads more back. Like, Greeny, Denver, doesn't matter, Ev, doesn't matter. There's quite a few. There's lots of little bits as well on top of that. And I think when you invest in people, I think people repay their faith in that you've put in them much more than the actual what you put in. The time you invest. And I think that'd be the same in any business, but I've only ever worked in football, and that's how I do it.
Well, the idea that you glossed over a bit, the idea of an individual development plan for every single player, sitting down and looking at the model that we've got overall that David's and Polly's creating, and then each player, how do you fit in that and how you improve? That we haven't seen that yet in football. So in businesses you can do that quite regularly, but that's in a club like ours, that feels like a massive way.
It's a bit like, I was talking to Doug today, when he runs back into the box, how he opens his body up to clear the ball, and he actually opens his body up a bit too much. So then the ball ends up coming in from the left, and he ends up sort of like miskicking it out to the right, and it's because he gets his shoulder out of the way too much, and it's the little bits of detail that's, I suppose, the real skill bit, if you like, but it's actually spending the time to tell him. That's the key bit, as opposed to not just go, bloody kick it up there, kick it into the stand, Doug, will you? Or, you're rubbish, or whatever it might be. It's actually, no, I know you don't mean to make a mistake, but this is the technical reasons why. So can you practice this? Now that's on you then. We can give you this, we can put practices on, we can show you a little, but it's not actually, it doesn't need to be a full squad practice. You just need someone to cross a few balls, run back like this, and have a little glance, but not actually move that shoulder. And practice and repetition. We were sat with the staff yesterday. We had a webinar with Gia Gaudet, who's a psychologist, who's about penalties. Fascinating, fascinating the detail. And then Simon Rolfs at Leverkusen, unbelievable. So we're learning stuff all the time and invest, and then we try and put that into the players all the time through individual development plans that's linked to the game model, that's linked to how we're trying to improve, so that we get more results. That's ultimately how I get judged, if you like. But there's actually many more facets underneath that.
You mentioned penalties there. Just I'm interested just to get a bit more from you on that. Why have you decided to look at that now?
That was just the webinar.
Okay.
It was just through the MMA, and it was interesting. Loads of little bits that you go, ooh, really, really interesting.
I did go into David's office though when we were doing this in the pre-season, and Kieran Greens was just said score some goals. That was it basically. So
he's delivering on that. In fairness to him. Polly, how are you finding life at Blundell Park?
Yeah, really good. Thank you, Matt. Yeah, enjoying it.
How long is it now? You've been here probably 4 months, 5 months?
I think 5 months now. Yeah.
And how are you finding the area?
Yeah, really good. So young family. Son just started school, so he's learnt the days of the week, so he knows when it's the weekend. So he's settling in well. Thanks.
Good. Question from Adam McMillan for you, Polly. Is there any possibility in bringing back promotions like Kids for a Quid on certain match days?
Yes, I don't know if you noticed in the Bromley game we had 700 kids in the Osmond, so we did a deal strategically with the foundation to work through with some of our priority schools, and we'll keep doing those throughout the season. I think picking those games where there might not be as many attending from the opposition, just picking them carefully, but we'll absolutely keep looking to do deals, particularly through the foundation. So we're working with community groups, schools, charities that are on our radar to help benefit being a partner of the club. So we'll continue to do that.
Don't be shy out there if you want a question. This gentleman has just raised his hand, so he's not shy. Meg's coming across to
He don't go to school, so he's asking for a free ticket, that lad.
But of course, yes. Les Bell, I was interested, David, in your statement about individual players' development plans. Do these development plans mesh into an overall development plan for the team?
Yeah, of course. We've got, me, Polly, and Gareth Jennings had a meeting on Monday, Tuesday, this week, to further bring on our game model, like an overarching game model, and that filters through player profiles, so that goes into recruitment, also goes into team principles, what we want to do, but then actual individual development. So to add a bit more meat to the Kieran Green just score goals that the Vice Chairman has just very kindly alluded to, we've done a lot of work with Greenie about where he runs, when he runs, his finishing, so that all that comes from how we want to play. So that goes back up that way towards team, so that you can see that, and I think he's a really good example of that, if you like. So, and it's not just that, we all, it's interesting, me and Sean got laughed at in the office before pre-season started when we said that Greenie will score 10 goals. Greenie thinks he'll score a lot more, and so do I.
Let's hope.
And I think that's really important.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you for it. Dave Smith, probably not that one, although I've never known it. Ask the question, have the club looked into if there's any legal action stroke compensation due regarding Jake Eastwood's injury at Carlisle, and has there been conversations with the league about the metal bracket in the goal? Question for you, Andrew.
Yeah, we are in dialogue with both the EFL and the players' PFA about Jake's injury. I mean, obviously a freak accident, but then looking at the design of the goal, it didn't look like it was impossible. So yes, it's an ongoing dialogue, and we'll need to obviously make sure that Jake is well looked after, as well as any compensation we as a club suffer because of the loss of Jake in the medium term, because he's going to be out for at least 6 months.
Are your goals designed the same way? I've not had a chance to check. I don't know.
No.
David, it was horrendous, wasn't it?
You're sort of up against it a little bit through various reasons, through injuries. If you said to me before the kick-off at Carlisle you're going to get a serious injury to a goalkeeper, have a guess how, that would have been, 3,000th on the list. Bonkers. Absolute bonkers. It's quite clearly, as soon as it happened, Rosie's calling over, and just, when he saw him in the hospital, he was in good spirits, and then thankfully the guy who operated on him in Carlisle was actually a knee surgeon, so he didn't need 2 ops. So there was extreme bad luck, but then there was a little bit of fortune afterwards, believe it or not. He's been seeing specialists, he's in good spirits, he's been in this week for the first time with his knee brace on. The pain from the op has subsided a lot. So we just support him as best we can. I've said to him, if you want to go away for a week or 2 at this stage, you can, rather than do, just delay the start of the rehab, because it's not going to make any difference over the next months or so, or whatever. So yeah, it's just a bonk. I've never seen anything like it in my time in football, really.
We wish him well with that. Do you think the powers that be will change the way that goals are designed after this?
I think
From the conversations you've had so far?
I think it's something clear they'll be looked into. There are British standards for design of goals, which go into a lot of detail on and I guess learning from previous accidents that have happened. So, if nothing else, there might be a sort of a change in the future to design of goals as a result of Jake's injury.
We're live from McMenamin's for a Grimsby Town Fans Forum here on BBC Radio Humberside. It's just gone 6:30.
To get the latest on Scunthorpe United,
click subscribe on BBC Sounds.
And I think that was supposed to be Grimsby Town. You can do the same for Grimsby Town. Just search Grimsby Town. I'll tell you what, I'll do their job for them. Just do the search for Grimsby Town on BBC Sounds, and you can subscribe. And whenever I do an interview with David or any of the players, it'll just pop up on your mobile device. Evening to all Scunthorpe United fans listening. Hope you're well. Any more questions from the floor? Gentleman here with the glasses. We'll be to you, the lady there, in a moment. Please take my glasses off. Can't see very well.
Thank you. Alan Rutter. I sit on the front row of the main stand, not far from the dugout. And
it's not you, is it?
No. I share your concern about the quality of the assistants, particularly more than the referees. The last one we had, where we sit, was absolutely appalling. What can the club do to complain about these, and how does the process work to try and make these people any better at what they do?
I've said it in the press. I've said it in sort of consecutive weeks to try and get the point across. First of all, I'm on the referee's side. I think it's really important that we all want really good officials. So it's not as if, whatever I say, I don't want you to think I'm referee bashing at any point, because I'm not. They've got a really tough job. Ultimately, we, as 1/92nd of the whole Football League pyramid, have got a duty to improve their standards, because they are amateurs in a professional game. Up in the Championship, the professionals, in the Premier League, the professionals, and they're still getting things wrong, and we can sort of accept that, because at least they are getting better. At our level, they're not. So I've spoken to referees after the game and I ask them what they do, and they tell me they're architects. And I go, right, I'll come and draw some plans for Mr. and Mrs. Bloggs on Monday morning. And on Tuesday morning, when I've made a right pig's ear of it, you're going to have the wrath of your boss, because that's how I feel right now. And when you put it like that, it's bonkers, because I can't draw. You know. But that's sort of where it's at, and when it's just crazy. So we've got a duty, I think, and it's way above my pay grade. It's more for Andrew and Jason and all of the owners to get together and get funding from things because the referees want to be professional. They're not genuinely trying to make mistakes. That's their integrity is unquestionable. And if you do question that, get ready, because you'll be at Wembley. So there's none of that. In the meantime, we have to try and help them. So if I think I've spoke to Mike Jones, there's Mike and the other guy, Alan Wiley, who are in charge of the referees at our level. And so for example, against Bromley, we were down to 10 men. Last 5 minutes of the game, we cleared a ball. The referee stopped the game for head injury in our box. The dropped ball. There was nobody within 15 yards. We took the ball last. It should have come to us, right in front of the dugout. Said, can I just check? It's not. Is it the last person that's touched the ball, or is it a bit like offside? If you're this close, you're actually deemed to be in control of the ball. No, you've got to have touched the ball. Well, can you tell me why this, please? Right, you got that wrong. Okay. It's minor, but it helps the referees, it helps the officials. Don't get me wrong, it didn't help us at the time, because they literally dropped the ball and whacked it into our box, etc. So you're trying to help them in a nice way, in the right way. Do they get too much wrong? I'm afraid they do. But then we can't do anything about that. We can't. So, it's hugely frustrating. I think we all agree with that. But we've got as a stakeholder in the game, that's whether it's coaches, owners, fans, we've all got a duty to try and make them better without criticising too much. And I know that's difficult. I find it difficult.
I think just to add a little bit on the process side, so we feed back to the EFL after every game, so we submit a report where we can grade the referee on various different options. I know there's an awful lot of work going on with the PGMO at the moment in terms of change of their structure, their organisation. There's been a bottleneck of referees at the grassroots level, so you had to referee hundreds of games to even get to tier 6, tier 7, tier 5, tier 4, work your way up. So I know they're looking at that to try and fast track some better talent. It's not going to happen overnight, but I know under Howard Webb they're really looking at it to try and free up some of those pathways to get some of the better referees through faster. So we'll continue to feed back. But David's right, they're trying, and it's just a collective response from all of the stakeholders to try and get better and more improved referees week to week.
I do know that they've recently done, for the first time, trying to fast track a players course, a former players course. So I know Luke Waterfall's on it, for example. I know Danny Rose applied and didn't get on. I know Harvey Rogers applied and didn't get on, for example, because they want to be referees afterwards, which I think is quite a good thing. I think we're terrible, but that's a different kettle of fish.
Of all the players you could have mentioned to be referees, I haven't heard that. Luke is a surprising one, mate.
So they're trying to do things. So they're constantly trying to do things to improve. It's just that football runs at such a pace that they are playing catch up, and significant catch up, I'm afraid. But you know, that's where we're at.
I wonder whether that mirrors the frustrations of the players, because they actually want to take it on themselves and do that. I was chatting to another former player of this club who was here last season. He was telling me exactly the same. He'd quite like to have a go at refereeing once he finishes his playing career.
You're not going to argue with Luke, though, are you? That's a reality. If he says we'll go.
Yeah. Thanks for your question, Alan. The lady with the glasses. Hello.
Hi, question for David.
Your name is, sorry?
Oh, sorry, my name's Sue Bell.
Hi, Sue.
Hi. David, I understand that Luke has gone back to his parent club because of injury, and I just wondered, watching him play, I thought he was really, really good, and I just wondered if you have anything to tell us of how he is.
I haven't at the minute, because he had his scanner, I think it was 3:30 today, in London. As soon as we know more, I'll tell you. It's as simple as that. Like I said, we think it's a tendinopathy of his hamstring tendon rather than his actual hamstring muscle, but we don't. I'm certainly no doctor or physio, and there'll be some pictures to tell us exactly what's wrong with him. I can't tell you anymore because I don't know anymore, I'm afraid. Hopefully it won't be too long.
But we've gone for the season, haven't we? I mean,
yes.
That's implicit in the question.
Yeah.
Like, it's not gone back to be their parent when he's fit. We're still going for the rest of the season.
Yes. He's only gone back to Luton because they wanted him to go to a specific place in Luton, in London, which we were fine with.
Thanks for the question. This is one for you, Polly, from View from the Findus podcast. Listen myself, thank you very much for your question. What would you say is unique to Grimsby Town when considering all of the other League Two clubs? A unique selling point, be that for prospective players, investors or fans?
I think there's loads, and I think this is actually a piece of work that we're working through with the marketing team in terms of our strategic purpose, and it shouldn't really be something that I sort of convey, but it's something that you should all feel. So whether that's where we live and all of the benefits around being a coastal town, having more affordable housing compared to other areas of the UK. But if you look at Blundell Park, how unique that is, 125 years of playing at Blundell Park and how special it is, down to experiences on the match day. So having bars in the stand, brilliant. There's not many clubs that would have a little pub in their main stand. So bringing out some of those unique parts that make this club different to Scunthorpe, different to Lincoln, different to Doncaster, what makes this Grimsby. And hopefully over time you'll start to see through our campaigns, through our communications, just elevating that specialness a little bit more. But it shouldn't be down to me to say to you, this is what makes it unique. You guys should all feel it and know it. And then it's our job to bring it out in the pitches that we speak to players or staff that we're trying to recruit to the club to say this is what makes it special. But there's loads of different things. I mean, you two as owners will know even more, but yeah, we're looking forward to bringing that a bit more to the fore in our comms.
I generally believe the football club's a reflection of the community and reflection of the attributes of the community, whether that's hard work, whether that's humour. And whenever I take a friend who's not been to the club before and they hear some of the chants that the fans come out with, then they're fans for life. It's brilliant. So I think for me it's about the community, the connection the club has with the community, which we're only trying to we're trying to build on, and that's something that is true across the EFL. But you've only got to see our away support. even in the bleakest, coldest midwinter day in South England, will take 500 to 1,000 fans. It's astonishing, and every time it happens, it's really brilliant reflection of all of us as Grimbarians, I guess.
David, previous managers here have told us about the geographical location of Grimsby being difficult to recruit for. Have you need to be more persuasive with players you've targeted in the 2 windows you've had?
See, I think that's Coswell. I think it's the opposite. If we could say complete same about Plymouth, well, they're a championship club. They are miles from anywhere, apart from Guernsey. Do they struggle? No, they don't. It's actually a benefit, not a complete. So I was talking to a player. I don't know if the fans know this, but we've got 3 houses by the Kingsway Hotel, and we've got 12 lads staying there. They love staying there because they're all together. Yes, they have to go and see family, and they have to travel wherever they live, and all the rest of it. And they come home, they come back Sunday night, and they all stay there. They all go out on a Monday for something to eat. If we haven't got a game on a Tuesday, but it gives them a real sense of togetherness, a real sense of community, and that's key. That's only 12 of them. That's less than half of the lads, just about half of the lads. And it's like, we've got a car school from Sheffield area, from Leeds, but they're all together because they have to be here. They have to be here. So it actually aids our recruitment. It doesn't hinder it. So that's the way I look at it, and I go, well, that's really important. Then when you couple that in with the people, with the fans, so the honesty, the values, what people live by, then you do it by the actual number of people, the support. Well, hang on a minute, where's the negative in all this? Then you add in fish and chips.
Now you're talking.
Yeah, but you get my point. Then you add in individual development plans, the actual on-pitch stuff. What we're going to do for you, we are going to do this for you, I promise. Why? Because I've done it with lots of other people. I've done it for lots of people at this football club now. Whether that's Cancon, whether it's Killian, whoever. Done lots of history of It's like, come on, you want to be here? If you don't, fine. That's absolutely not a problem. But the old, it's closer to, Amsterdam or whatever, rubbish.
Has the town surprised you?
Not particularly. I come from a town like this. These people are my kind of people that I grew up with. So I'd like to think I've got a lot in common with them. Hard working, sensible, logical, love the football club. I just think that's how honest. They've been brutally honest towards me at times, I'll be honest with you. I'd rather lie a bit, to be honest. But you get me,
I do. I get you.
So I go, I'd much rather a spade be a spade than a shovel, because it's a spade.
And that's appreciated, I think, by the fans in attendance. David Artell, Grimsby Town head coach, is with us here at the Mariners Fans Forum at McManus, for those listening. We've also got Vice Chair Jason Stockwood, the Chair Andrew Pettit, and CEO Polly Bancroft. Back to the floor. Anybody got a question, a burning question? Up goes a hand in the fourth row. Good evening.
Hello. You talked about 4 or 5 questions ago about the playing philosophy, but you didn't say whether that goes down to the academy and whether young players and under Neil Woods are bringing forwards players that can seamlessly slip into the way you want to play. I just wondered what you think on that.
Cam Gardner.
Yeah.
I don't understand, but Cam Gardner, Henry Brown, the second-year scholar, they're coming. That kind of thing does take time. Woods is a good coach. Carl Lester's a good coach. Are we asking them to coach in a different way? No, not particularly. But we're asking them to prioritise different things. That takes time, like it took time with me in the first team, if you like. It does take time. These are long-term, medium to long-term things. An under 9, we're not going to see in the first team for 10 years, in essence. So it does take time.
That's a great example, but it's just a one-off. Is that reflecting a general policy?
No, I can maybe jump in. I mean, that part of the game model we talk about is basically how we want to play. is club wide now. That's kind of the point. So it's a great question. It's exactly why we did it. Is that the academy was disconnected. So a manager would come in and have their style of play historically, and that will take 3 transfer windows as a minimum, we think. And so every time you put a new manager in and it's disconnected from the academy, you just roll in the dice with all those kids, because how they play, how they've been coached, the philosophy, the style, will more probably is likely to be a disconnect every time. So the whole point is to increase the probability of success from our academy. The game model is club wide now, so it can be coached from as soon as those kids come in, however young they are nowadays, right through to the first team. It's a style of play and a philosophy that is connected, which increases that probability. So it's a really insightful question, because it's exactly why we did it, is to increase the probability of having a Cam Gardner. So that's absolutely happening.
Just to add, sorry to that, it is a hybrid approach as well. So it needs to allow the coaches to do what they do best. So yes, it's about creating a framework to have similarities and a style and some principles, but we have to trust in our coaches to do what they do well and what they're employed to do. So it's blending that, so there's flexibility within it depending upon the opponent, the score, the point in the season, the age group. So there's absolutely flexibility to be applied, but it's that consistency both on the male pathway and the female pathway. So we've got a Grimsby Town approach to playing. So it's an iterative process, it may change, but it's been a really exciting piece of work to be involved with, and looking forward to seeing the fruits of the labour.
Thanks for the question. We'll move on to the next one. This is from Jayat Sabaratnam. This is for Polly. Gareth Jennings is part of the board of directors. Please could you explain his role at the club?
Yeah, so Gareth is a non-exec technical director, so he's on hand to speak to David, I think, fortnightly. They get in touch around, could be anything from game model to individual players to individual matches. He's been supporting us in the development of that game model. So someone with a huge amount of technical experience. He's worked for FIFA, he's worked for New Zealand, Wales, various clubs, so a really good resource for us to have on hand should we need it. So we're really enjoying working with Gareth. And
how helpful is it for you, David? Sorry, I got to cross your point.
He's extremely helpful for me. Like I say, I catch up with him at least every fortnight. He's sort of an outsider on the inside, so I can use him as a sounding board for little bits. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? Because of his vast knowledge within the game, but now he's moved sort of to executive level. He's been extremely helpful. I'll speak to him because I know this guy, and he comes back and he goes, he said this and this, and you end up sort of making sort of more sensible decisions having used him as a sounding board. He's extremely helpful for me.
Thanks for that question. Plenty more in front of me, but I'm conscious also we've got loads of people in the room desperate to ask a question. The gentleman right at the back will keep Meg on her toes. Good evening to you.
Hiya, Ben Bristow.
Hi Ben.
I'd like to ask, I know Jason said he's shy away from the word data today, but with artificial intelligence and machine learning, is that being used in the club, and how is it being utilised at all?
Thank you for that's not planned, by the way. I didn't ask that. Not really is the honest answer. I mean, the data that we get to help us with the recruitment will have some machine learning capabilities in it, but actually artificial intelligence isn't being used. So I think there's a massive opportunity. We were chatting today actually about computer vision to actually track players and stuff, but no one's developing. There's a great book, I've actually written an article about it, called How to Win the Premier League by a guy called Ian Graham. If anyone's interested in data and the potential of how it can be used, that's a phenomenal book about how they use data in Liverpool to take it from where it was to where it is today. And he talks about they've got a partnership with DeepMind, with Google, where they're doing some computer vision stuff, which is really interesting. I think it'll be pervasive. I think in 10 years from now, every club will have it. Whether we can be at the vanguard of investing in computer vision, I actually think low orbit satellite imagery can be useful as well. That's a whole other conversation, because that's prevalent today as well. But the ability to use that data and make it useful is probably a couple of years away, I think. But Google and DeepMind will probably lead on it. And the issue is, when we get money in, it's so hard in a loss-making situation. I would love to try some of this stuff, but playing budget, main stand roof, there's so many things that come before we get to that stuff, which would be, £500,000 to do something on computer vision. But I think it could change the game. But but it won't be for us for a while.
What was that book called again?
How to Win the Premier League
by Sir Alex Ferguson.
Ian Graham.
No, Ian Graham. It's a phenomenal. It's a
I was
phenomenal.
being facetious. I think you knew that.
And I'll speak over you. Ian Graham.
Thank you. The gentleman at the back there in the turquoise.
Hi, it's a question for David. Obviously we're going to get promoted this season. I just wanted to know whether it would be automatically or by the players.
I'll be honest with you, that was a plant. No, it wasn't. I think the truth is, I think we're going along fine, but we haven't cracked it. And I'm being brutally honest with you. Our performances recently have been okay without being great. That's not to say we've been lucky or anything like that. We know where we are with squad numbers, as in like availability. We've still got a long way to go. Would more players available help? Of course it would. But we've still got a lot of learning, a lot of development to do. Winning four games in the last 5 is always helpful. And when you're going through this process, winning will help, it will speed it up, the development, because when endorphins run around your body, you're going to do more. It's as simple as that, and all them hormones are important. But we're not as secure in our performances yet, and anywhere near that as I would like. I'm not trying to sort of rain on your parade. I still want you to think we're getting promoted, because that's, because that's what we all want. And I'm not, but at the same time, I'm not trying to temper expectations. Or I am to a degree, but I'm just being realistic, and I'm being truthful, because we've still got a lot to learn and a lot to do. We've shown that we can play football, good football. We can show we can defend properly. Have we done both sides of the game in one game yet? Probably not. So we've got to do that, and then we've got to do that consistently, and then we've got to do that consistently well. So I think you can see the seeds that have been shown with and without the ball. I think we all can see that. I'm hoping you can all see that. But now it's blending it all together and doing it really, really well and improving all the time.
I think one of the litmus tests for that for me has been, and it's sort of a genuine question, is like, last year when we were trying to play football out the back, nearly every time the people around us would be going, kick it up, hoof it up, and people can see what we're trying to do now. So one of the measures for me is that that's dying down, where people can see the possession at the back is a way of building to do something in the final third as well. So people hopefully can see the progression. I've got a printout on my desk at home of last year's league table finish. So I see it every day. I look up, I see it, and just the mistakes we made last year and how we want to improve. I think I'm just trying to remind myself about the journey that we're on, and you can see, hopefully everyone can see the improvement both in the quality of the football that we're watching. We come to be entertained, all of us, and I think we're getting entertained, which is primarily, but we're also, we're getting the rub of the green sometimes and getting some of the results as well. But it's definitely a journey, but we're appreciating that people are starting to see now what we tried to do probably too quickly last year.
Yeah, I've admitted that.
Yeah, but it's starting to work now. And more than anything, it's good to watch, isn't it? It's like you come here, you're getting entertained, which is what we all want. And I've said it, probably not that popular, but I'd rather see us lose a couple of games slimly by playing good football than just grind out 1-0s for a couple of years. Just I don't come here to watch that type of football. So, but winning is important. I'll state that. But the style of football that we've got is important as well, I think.
Thanks for your question. Dave at the front here's got a question. Who would you like to aim it?
It's for David.
There we go.
Hi David.
Hello.
How pleased are you with Evan Cory's development this year? And I mean, we've been waiting a while for him to break through, but he's doing a lot better than any of us even thought he probably could do. What have you got to say about it?
So the thing for me, I thought Evan Cory's development was mishandled for a good 2 or 3 years. So I come in end of November last year. I'd run his agent, it was certainly before January, he said, right, he's got him on. And his agent's words to me were, thank God for that, we've been trying for 2 years. We put him to Spennymoor, he played I think 2 games, got really ill and come back. And it didn't sort of work out. But one thing that I made sure with Evans I developed a relationship with him, and we worked hard at developing him. And he's shown already this season, whether he's an 8, a 6, a left back, he's got some ability. So, and when you invest time in people, you know, when you're going out on loan, right, to get better. You're not going out on loan to be outside, out of mind. That might happen with 1 or 2 in January. Why? Because that's their journey. And their journey is to play and play well for our first team. All of them, that's why they're here. Evan's a great example of that. So then when he then comes back and he does well in pre-season, and you go on, keep going, and I scored a goal against, I think it was Clean Town in pre-season. It might be Grimsby, I can't remember, it was Grimsby or Clean Town, I think it was Clean Town. And you're going, right, okay, he's picking that up, right, okay. Then you tell him he's picking it up, but you don't rest on his laurels, you're developing in other words. And when he's learning, he's taking it on board and he's engaged, you know, you go, this is it, come on, where can you get to? I don't think he had that. And I'm not trying to bash anyone, I just think that's what it was, he stagnated. He just existed for 2 years as a footballer. And if you don't, as a young player, sometimes it's really difficult to understand what you need to develop. When that then comes in, and you go, come on, you need this. This is really important for you. Do this bit, whatever they are. And he goes, yeah, okay, I'll try that. Then that's then on him. But you've got to, the best way of learning, making mistakes.
Dave, thanks for your question, and thanks for answering it, Dave. On BBC Radio Humberside, we come up to the 7 o'clock news, but thank you so much for all your questions this evening. We do appreciate them, and we appreciate the panel for being so forthright in answering them. Cheap plug, we're back with more Grimsby Town commentary tomorrow on the radio. We've got the Walsall home game here on BBC Radio Humberside Sport, but we are coming up to the hour, so from all here at the Grimsby Town Fans Forum, it's a very good evening. If you'd like to ask a question, raise your hand in the air now. This lady at the front, Meg. Thank you. Your name is?
Olivia Dennison.
Hi.
For Polly and David, very, very important question, maybe the most important of the evening. So you've been in the area for a while now. Steels or Ernie Beckett's?
Well, you want this is the completely true answer, right? My wife has come on the train tonight for the first time. She's obviously been to lots of the games, but she's come over on the Friday because it's half term and my daughter's come to her house, the friends over the road, so we're going to over the bridge, so we're going to get her in the morning, so she's come over tonight. I vet at Ernie Beckett's, right? I'm going back to the hotel and we're going to have a Steels. So, can I tell you tomorrow morning?
Yes.
That's the God's only. I know it's a bit long-winded answer, but that's the God's honest truth.
I believe you.
What
Polly?
about people?
The what?
People coming round to you.
Oh no, I'm not sure about that, Dave.
So I've only gone to Steels so far, but Ernie Beckett's is on the list, so I'll hold judgment until
Next year. Let us know next year.
We'll do.
Fine. Okay.
Thanks for the
What
question.
about, can we reverse the
Yeah.
question? What about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, Steels.
Is that right?
It's the bread and butter. It's the best bread and butter in the world. The lovely ladies that serve you is what he means.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Steels, but Ernie Beckett's do nice chips. And Switzerland. Steels.
Thank you. Glad we've established that. Another question.
Where are we?
We've got plenty here, but don't be shy because this is your chance. Okay.
We've got one, Matt.
Are we okay?
Go on.
It's just a question for David again. I believe you described Alex Hunt a while ago as probably the most talented player at the club. Who's that now?
Actually, I remember that guy. He was the most technically gifted. Wasn't he?
Technically gifted, yeah.
Slightly different.
Yeah, I did say he was the technically the best player in the club.
All right.
Who's the best player at the club now? Is that
Well, yeah, technically then.
technically the best
Yes.
player? Technically the best player is
I'll
George.
make it easier for you.
Technically the best player is George McEachran.
Okay.
You know, 16 years at Chelsea, England age groups. Yeah, technically the best player.
Thank you.
Watch him warm up, by the way. When he first came and David said, we've got this lad, and then talks about his background, I watched him warm up before one of his first games, and he can control a ball, he can ping a ball with accuracy in a way I haven't actually seen in this club for years. And you should actually watch the players trying to warm up with him. They often walk off because like what he can do with the football, just even warm up, is extraordinary actually. So it's worth just noticing when you notice it, and then you see how he plays. It makes sense.
This is a good question from Paul Hallam, who asks if David has a theory as to why we have so many muscle-related injuries this season.
I was just talking to a guy there who asked me
It's not Paul Hallam, is it?
in the break. It's not hamstring injuries per se. You know, we had Raquel from last season, Doug from last season, Rosie from last season, all different. Raquel was a quad, Doug's was a shoulder. Rosie wasn't that, it was ankle and pelvis. Curtis was the ball at York. With Jordan Davis, it was a lack of a pre-season, then playing 60 minutes, 90 minutes, bang, a spiking load, and it's a weak spot. So whatever the weakest spot of his body was, it was his hamstring. So that was us. You know, he scores 2 against Cheltenham here, and we go to Notts County 5 days later on a Thursday night. We didn't think he wouldn't have recovered, but that's how it has. So it's easy with hindsight to know that. I can imagine the uproar if I'd have gone, no, he needs a rest, having played 60 minutes, played 90 minutes and scored 2, and then me not playing him against Notts County 5 days later. Everyone would think I'd have been bonkers. With hindsight, I wish I would have, obviously. There's all different reasons, is the truth. We wouldn't have got Jaden Luca, we wouldn't have got Justin. Neither of them had hamstring injuries when they first come. You know, so, but we wouldn't have got them, so you know, we knew that was a risk, but not a big risk. So some of it is, a lot of it is with the benefit of hindsight, really. We had one of the lowest incident rates last year, and I think we're regressing to the mean now and paying the price for it, really.
Thank you. Questions here from Nigel, Christian and Stephen, all asking how you compare the job you had at Crewe to here, and given the back time and resource, how far would you like to take this club moving forward?
I think the biggest difference is the majority of the players came from the academy in the previous role, whereas he's outside recruitment. One of the other bigger differences, the resources here are much better, as in staff. Without a shadow of a doubt, one of the things I couldn't do, and I didn't do very well, was delegate at Crewe. I can delegate here because the staff are much more competent, and there's more of them. I didn't have a head of recruitment, so I didn't have a Joe Hutchinson, for example, who does a lot of weight for making a lot of phone calls that I had to do. For example, Sean Pearson can read and write, whereas my assistant at Crewe couldn't actually read and write. I'm not joking, he couldn't. He couldn't. He was a brilliant footballer, club legend, tactically unbelievable, much better than Sean in that sense. He couldn't read and write, couldn't turn on the computer. I was doing his job for him in off the pitch. So there's lots of differences in terms of this club needs to get, you know, this club spent more, so we talk about attractions to this football club, and we've spoke, and you know, me and Polly spoke about, you know, the area, the people, you know, where we can get to. This club spent more years in the Championship than Leagues 1 and 2 combined, so we know where this club sits in its history. So my job is to get it back there. You know, there's no point talking about the Championship because we can't get there yet. So we've got to aim for League 1.
Yeah.
That's what we've got to do. That's you know, that's the first step. We're right at the start of this journey. that's the aim, and we've got to shoot for the stars, and if we do that, then we might just, you know, touch the moon, if you like. So that's how I see it. You know, there's lots of differences, and I think lots of them are in positive ways.
Thank you. Another question.
It's John Richards. I just wanted to ask a question in regards to the seat swap, obviously, that's coming. We're trialling it next week for the game against MK Dons. I guess this is a question for pretty much all of you. I think more so for David, just as a general consensus of what you make of the atmosphere at Blundell Park at times, because I know it can be a bit up and down, albeit game circumstance, of course, but I guess for the owners as well, what sort of success are you sort of looking for with this, and how, if it's something that can benefit hopefully further down the line, how would you see sort of this trial as the way to go?
If I take the seat swap and attendances, I think firstly, hats off to everyone who's renewed the season ticket after last season. You know, to show up in such big numbers again, really, really testament to everybody coming forwards. I think we've got the third highest occupancy rate in the league, so over 70% every game, which is amazing. So just to continue that really, and to build on that season by season, but we don't take it for granted. We really appreciate the number of people that have bought season tickets, and they continue to come match by match as well. There are things that we're looking to do from a matchday experience perspective around the build-up or countdown to kick-off, working with fans to see what the matchday experience looks and feels like. So that we're early stages of that process. Even things like trying to get a side on the pontoon just to keep some of the noise in, where there's a lot of vocal. I think the drummer goes in that space as well. So we're looking at various tactics around the ground to work on the matchday experience. But yeah, just a big thank you really from me, from everyone, for showing up again this season. Hopefully you like what you're seeing, and yeah, we just continue to build on that experience for everybody. I guess David can speak on the...
I think the thing for me is with the attendance, obviously we, as in like what happens on the pitch, has a big say in how that happens and how it's generated. I'm used to a really quiet crowd, because Crew was. They wanted to see good football, but I've also experienced the Den. And when you walk out there and you've got 8-year-olds calling you things that, you know, probably weren't in my vocabulary at 8 for certain, you see a different side to it. We're not that, obviously, but we are extremely passionate. And when that passion comes out, you know, I spoke a lot about the Bradford game, for example, in that last 20 minutes when we've got Matty Carson and Luiz as our 2 6ers stopping their 2 8s, because we didn't have, any midfielders, and we knew we had to make changes because the lads had run their race in there, and how the crowd got us over the line. It's so important. It's so important. We mentioned the occupancy rate at the stadium to new players. We mentioned how many times we take 2,000 away from home. We mentioned how many times we take 1,000 away from home. All these things are really important, you know. And I know that probably doesn't mean really anything, because you're going to turn up and all the rest of it. But it paints the full picture of this football club from a fan's perspective, from a player's perspective, and what the support is. And when then you get behind the lads, you know, I said it last season, and we didn't give you much to cheer about. And I know this season we are giving you a bit more to cheer about. And I said to the Doncaster game, I walked across to the other side, and I said to Sean and Ben, I said, look, for the first time since I've been here, it feels like a big game. It felt, you could feel it. I don't know what that feeling is, as in like what it means, what it constitutes, if you like. And I'm hoping for the same tomorrow. And you can, that buzz of excitement, obviously we want a better performance, but the longer you stick with us, the longer, I've just said someone there, I think one of the biggest things that I had to achieve was changing hearts and minds to make the average fan understand that just whacking it forward and hoping for a 1-0 wasn't wasn't the way forward. And I'm hoping now that the fruits of all our labours is starting to slowly, if you're not already there yet, understand that this is the way forward. The best teams last year, the best football teams last year got promoted. It's no surprise that Crawley got promoted because they were a good football team. You know, it's no surprise that Crewe, who were in the playoffs, didn't, because they didn't play good enough football. So we've got to play good football, and then because we've now got greater buy-in, rather than put it forward, Harvey! That kind of, that's not helpful. I can't stop that, but that's not helpful.
Sorry.
But you know, and I, it's not that I'm saying don't shoot, but like, because we've now gone through that journey together, and I hope that we're all seeing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel with the way we're going. That then becomes, you know, more euphoric because we've all bought into it, and that's, you know, that I think the fans are unbelievable, like really, like so passionate, get right behind us. There's not much more to say than that because the numbers are fantastic.
I think an implicit in your question is how we measure it though as well. Like, part of this is like we can't control fans' reaction at all. Right? Obviously, what we put on the pitch can. But so I think this has just been something that's come up through different fans' forums and on some of the different podcasts as well. So it's a chance to say, look, we've got an opportunity. We'll try it. We'll sort of know when we're together if it feels better. And if it works, it feels like it changes the atmosphere dramatically, then we have to look at it, right? So I think it's a response. It's not particularly scientific. We're not going to be measuring the decibels in the crowd or anything, but I do think there's something. If it feels like there's a group of people that want to get together and create the atmosphere, it'd be amazing. But we'll feel it, I guess. Try and see if we have to do it consistently after that. And one of the criticisms has been about how the different pockets of fans who want to sing aren't together and stuff. So we'll find out tomorrow, won't we? So.
Yeah, just to echo that, I think, you know, if anyone's got ideas on what they'd like more from a match day experience, then absolutely let us know, whether that's through Mariners Trust or coming directly. You know, feel free. So always open to ways in which we keep developing it.
Just curious, what are you making of the atmosphere at home this season?
I've obviously mentioned it with, I think, game circumstance. I mean, we've seen it with, the Bradford game that was mentioned. It sort of gets, when it does get going, it does get pretty good. But I think there's probably a few times in which, probably this season, look, like I said, it's just more game circumstance. Bromley was maybe a little bit flat, although the game wasn't probably the best. But I think, if there's probably ways that we can look to maybe do it, then better. Because I think it's probably just an issue. It's not really much of an issue, but I just feel like it's gone a little bit too long. Obviously, before probably even you guys were here, but in which it's just sort of been a little bit too flat too many times, if that makes sense. So that's just sort of where I am with it.
It was weird. I went to Carlisle. Did you go to Carlisle at all?
Yeah. No, I didn't.
That was weird. Like, I've never been there. It was like everyone was chatting. It was like during the game you could feel this really strange atmosphere, like where people just didn't seem that interested in the game. And I was like, so
you all live miles away from each other.
Maybe that's it. Just meeting up for a chat.
Tractor and all that.
Not here, are we?
Yeah. No. Anyone from Carlisle?
We start doing impressions now. Is that? But,
have you noticed any difference with the way that fans view football now? Then, because as human beings, we are different, aren't we, nowadays to maybe 20 years ago?
And you talk about the atmosphere being quite unique when you've been here before.
Yeah.
So I think.
I think it's a good atmosphere. You know, I'd be straight if I didn't think it was the case. I'd say it.
The reason I ask the question is when we're watching telly at home, we're not watching telly, are we? We're looking at our phones, and people, it's a bit like when you go to a gig nowadays, people are talking amongst themselves, they're not watching the artist.
I think one thing that our fans are invested.
Yeah.
100%. I was just talking to them, and this is reflective across the country as well. It's not unique to us. This is the one constant in people's lives. You lose your job, you lose your wife, pets, family members, cars, change. This is the one constant. So you feel comfortable with it. And you're invested in the football club, so you feel as though you can say what you want. And that's not a bad thing. But we want people to say positive things. I appreciate that doesn't always work, and it shouldn't always be the case. But they're not looking at the phones. They're not just having a little sociable chat because they've already done that in the pub with 3 pints with their mates, and before they come to the ground, which is fine, obviously, or in the thing in the bottom corner, the fan zone. So it's like the atmosphere, I think, is quite crackling, and it's waiting for a goal, a bad refereeing decision. No, that gets everyone going. We're waiting for something. Now, the utopia is that happens when, I think the stadium announcer is brilliant, by the way. You know what he said before the game, I'm going, here we go. You know, I'm stood there thinking, here we go, come on, let's go. You know, so I think he does his best bit, if you like, and it's like, come on, are we all invested? And that's what I was saying about the Doncaster game. It felt like that before the game. I'm hoping it feels like that tomorrow. Now then it's up to us, game dependent and all the rest of it. I think that then takes the atmosphere up a notch in a real positive way. It's not bad, but it's, you know, if you go to Wrexham's like that at the minute. Now that's been built on 3 or 4 years of success, after being hammered for 17 years in the conference and some club beat them in the playoffs.
That'll soon stop though when the Tories take over.
Well, yeah.
I think fan behaviour has changed, though. There's so much analysis in the game now, so there's so much talk of breaking lines, having a pivot, a double 8. Like, you know, nobody spoke about that when you're playing as a kid in the park, whereas that kind of language and that kind of terminology is more well known and more discussed. So it's that type of level of conversation that you hear around the grounds, that you hear in the pubs watching football. It's a higher level rather than just lump it forward. You know, it's, are we playing a long ball, are we looking to play direct, are we playing progressive football? So they're the types of conversations that you start to hear around because of the amount of analysis that's in the game now.
Christian Forster has sent you a message, David. He says, with everything that went on last season, like Callum Amy's cancer diagnosis, the death of Cameron Walsh and his father, and the death of your own father, have you given yourself time to try and recharge from the emotional fatigue? And Christian says, you've said in the past that you're a workaholic, with football being a constant, but it's important to take time for yourself. The question has to be asked, and I've not asked you this myself because it's personal, but how are you now?
Yeah, listen, I would say the first 6 weeks, and we sort of can, a bit gallows humour, but it seemed that whatever happened in the first 6 weeks when I walked into the building was like catastrophic. You know, I did feel like John Nettles at one point in Midsummer, because it was like it was in the middle of some sort of like ridiculous TV show. But they're the challenges. They are the challenges. And you have to, whether you like it or not, you've got to galvanise people, you've got to be a leader, you've got to be constant, you've got to show humility, you've got to show sadness. I can remember I was nearly in tears. Not easy. But the bottom line is the players are there and they're with you. I don't think anyone can say that the players have never been with this football club, with me personally. It's not about me, it never is. But that's because you've invested in them. And then they'll give it you back. They just do. And that's human nature. And you take time when you can get a bit of time. That's, you know.
I think the concern from the question is, you know, the nature of the job and the way you are as a person.
Yeah.
Perhaps you've not been afforded the chance to step back from the things you've gone through.
I don't think, you know, I think maybe I haven't, but I don't particularly think like that. The things that you go through, whether that's, you know, 17-year-olds, you know, Callum, my own father, I think you've just got to, I think I'm really good at putting things in perspective. I think you have to in this job. You know, win 4 on the spin, you're not Thomas Tuchel. Lose 4 on the spin, you're not Big Dave who runs the walking football. You know, you're not the worst manager in the world. I'm kidding, Dave. I'm kidding. But you get me. You know, and I think you have to put that in perspective.
Well, that's just because you watch me.
So when real bad things happen, I think I try and sort of compartmentalise it and not carry it with me for too long. even when they are, you know, we were talking to Polly earlier about, you know, my own father, it's when you least expect it. A song, somebody saying something, it's, you know, it's little things, and there's nothing wrong with crying. You want to cry, you know, have a cry. That's not a bad thing. And that's how that's the players. You know, the players go through stuff all the time. All the time. You know, there's always things going on. You know, because it's 25 other lives and 10 staff. You know, that's how it is. You've got to make sure that everyone's all right. And I think I've got to be quite emotionally stable. And if you do that, then yeah. I just
thanks for answering.
Keep cracking on.
Yeah.
I think that's the important part, is that the people behind the shirt. It's not just the number on the back or the name, you know, above the shoulders. That there's, you know, look at Charles Vernon this week. You know, his partner had a baby. Like all of these amazing life experiences, some sad, some celebratory, go on. And I know that all four of us are really aligned in terms of being mindful of the person behind the shirt. So whether that's a staff member, whether it's a player, whether it's David, really taking that time to care for the person and ultimately make sure that they're okay. Because if they're okay, they're more likely to perform and be able to perform. But just, you know, we're all human, and making sure that people are okay. It's just, it's a normal, I would say, normal way to be around people, is making sure that they're okay and we're taking the time to care for them.
I think also, as David said, it's when your culture really shows up. Like, you know, Debbie did an amazing job at the CEO at the time, but really stepping in to make sure in all of those situations that we represented the club and the town how we wanted to. And that didn't happen on the day, that happens in the 2.5 years we've been working before. And like last year, I've said this before, I think I wrote about it as well, which is, you know, the Doncaster game last year, when we came together and we had the conversation, we learned more about that. Don't choke at the thought of that game, by the way, I know we're bad, but we learned more about each other in those moments where we stepped into and like, we're in this together, what we're going to do. You know, it's dead easy, whether you're in a business, whether you're in a football, when things are going well, anyone can do that, anyone can do it. But the real test of your culture and your character are when things get hard, and it just pulls you together. It pulls you tight together in those moments because you're tested.
I think when you've not got a finger pointing culture, your fault. So I'm really mindful when we do after every game, we'll do an hour in the video room reflecting on the game. It's easy for me to go, that's your fault for the goal. Easy. Because it probably was his fault. But rather than framing it like that, you frame it like, could you have done this bit better? Could you have done this? What if your body shape had been this? What if you had done this? What if you had done... It's not just on him. It's never one person, ever. Right? So when you frame it in this, when you use language in a certain way, that creates that culture that when times are difficult at the minute. They are. We've got 18 fit players tomorrow. And I've said it in the press. You see who you stood shoulder to shoulder with. Because you go, this is us. We haven't got a choice. This is us. Come on, let's go. Rather than me bleating on about how many people's injured. I've said it to you, haven't I? It's when you've got that mindset, it's not that you become formidable. I just think you see life through a different lens. Yeah, you know, and I think probably, I don't know if we've all lost parents, but I think we have, haven't we? It's like, so we all know what we've been through and what we're going through. It doesn't change, but it's like, well, do you want me to, you know, Jason, Andrew, listen, I'm not coming into work for the next, 3 weeks. I don't think that's unacceptable when you've lost a parent. But it's like, am I doing the lads a disservice, or am I just feeling a bit sorry for myself? There's no right and wrong. That might be the right thing for me, and then I come back and I go, bang, here we go, I'm back in the game. So that's not but it's each individual. For me, it was just like, right, keep going. The Newport game here was horrific for me. Like, really hard. But
You know, what might just add, Matt, just for a bit of colour, so it might be interesting, is that the only place I've ever seen the same characteristics that I've seen in football managers and head coaches is with successful entrepreneurs that don't have an off switch. And like, this again, it's not right or wrong, but the people I've been around that have been successful in the world of business are often just always on. And in the different stages of your life and different commitments and that. And when we first came in, we'd be like, do you need a holiday and downtime and that? It's just like, there isn't really a good time for it. It doesn't seem to be. And so you just kind of accept it that there's such a high bar on success and the career can be short, that the work seems to be relentless. And David takes care of himself and looks after big commitments to family and that as well. But it's interesting, it's a different type of working, like being an entrepreneur is. And some people, again, it's not value judgment on being better or worse, but it is different to most people going and doing a job that they can switch off at the end of the day. And I think that's been a lesson for us, because obviously we want this to be a long-time relationship, we want it to be sustainable, but there is an amount of pressure and intensity that just doesn't exist in other walks of life.
No, you end up finding joy, believe it or not, I might embarrass him, going to the Faroes Island with the chairman at the time.
People know about that. That was like a holiday we went on together. That sounds weird, doesn't it?
No, yeah.
People know about that.
I don't know.
A scouting mission.
Yeah, okay. So we
went to the Fitties.
We went to the Fitties. That's next year.
No.
We went on a scouting trip together for a couple of days. It was great, yeah.
So I took a lot of pleasure in that, because I've never done that with a chairman before. Right? The fact that he wanted to come with me, I thought, he must like me.
Can you say we had separate rooms? Just but
we had a really good time, and it was quite stimulating. We weren't talking shop for 2 days, 3 days, whatever it was. We had really interesting, stimulating conversations, and I took a lot of joy out of that. That might probably sound ridiculously weird to everyone else, and I understand that. But that's the kind of thing I'm still on, I'm still working, but at the same time I'm still trying to get better, I'm picking his brains about things, and it's like, okay, that's interesting, that's interesting.
Who did you go and watch? Specifically?
I'm not sure we can tell you that.
Just Google the best players up there. That's who we're looking at.
We went to buy a trawler.
Just did a lot of sightseeing. It was a mini break. That was just there.
You went down to Bradley to watch me, didn't you?
Yeah, that's it.
Is your interest still alive in that said player then?
There's a few players up there that we really like. Yeah, it's a surprisingly beautiful place, by the way. If anyone interested in a mini break, I can take you away for a week. But there's actually surprisingly high quality at the top end, which is weird, right? But it was the data that told us to go there. So the comparable league, but I didn't think we'd be getting the Faroe Islands with the head coach for a couple of days, but the data told there's some great players up there and undervalued players. So we went to have a look and had a couple of nice meals and a couple of walks together as well.
And will you revisit trying to tap into that market?
We're working to all that. David went to Iceland. We did a better job at closing the deal there, as it was you're seeing this year. But there's loads of markets around Europe that have undervalued players, and we'll continue to look. But those players are definitely interesting to us. But whether we're interesting to them is a different separate conversation as well.
Okay. More questions. This is from Matt Trafford, who says, if there are no sponsorship deals forthcoming for the upper and the lower, could the naming rights be given to a local charity to increase their exposure, or could it be named after a legend such as Bill Shankly or Alan Buckley?
So we are in conversations with potential sponsors around naming rights of the stands, of the ground, of the training ground, various assets, and that's really the priority, is to find someone long term for those assets. I think in the past the club has done some work with a charity to put branding on the front of this stand here. I think as soon as you go down the line of naming it after a former player, it's very difficult to then pivot away from that player. So you're almost taking then an asset offline to not be able to sell because it's got the name of that player on. So I think we'll constantly review and have a think about what is the best thing for the football club, but ideally it will be to secure one of those commercial sponsors.
And are you close to securing a sponsorship for this stand that we're in?
No, not close at the moment, but having some really good conversations.
Good.
It comes back to what I was saying right at the start about the commercial viability of the club. We need to sweat our assets, and these are assets that are currently unsweaty.
If you've got another question, please raise your hand. A couple of hands have gone up, so we'll go to the gentleman in the back. Is it Nigel?
Good evening, Nigel Lowther. Just one maybe for Jason, football regulator. Where are we with that? Can you give us some inside knowledge? And also related to that, Premier League and money's coming down from the Premier League. The deal wasn't done. Are we going to get any closer to seeing some of those monies filtered down to clubs like Grimsby Town?
Yeah, it's the same question really, Nigel. Thanks for that. I mean, the latest I heard, I think the regulator bill being passed is imminent, actually. It could be even days. So I think it's really that close. And one of the major considerations of that will be the financial flow. So the first thing they'll get to is that, if the EFL and Premier League can't get to a deal about distribution, then the regulator has powers to do that, and that's all in the bill. So I actually think it's days away. And Lisa Nandy, who I happen to know pretty well as well, is the best person in the country to be in that role at DCMS that happened, because she saved Wigan. I don't know if you know that she was one of the people that helped save Wigan Athletic a couple of years ago. So having a minister in there that understands the need for this and the importance of it, it couldn't be a better place. So yes, hopefully, it's massive for us, right? That, there was a number mentioned a couple of years ago that was nowhere near close to making it sustainable. We're just hoping this pushes that number closer to something that helps us with the commercial stuff, with everything that Polly's doing, that gets us to a place where we don't have to have massive inputs of cash every year. Alongside, the most important bit that isn't talked about as widely is a requirement for cost controls as well. So it makes no sense for money to come down to the Premier League if there aren't cost controls. It'll just the bigger teams, the people that can underwrite losses, will just spend on player wages, which I'm sure players will be happy with. But clubs will be in exactly the same situation, not exactly the same crisis as well. So it's all imminent. So I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks.
I think that's the other complication that's not often talked about, which is how you get the money to the smaller clubs from the Premier League without it going into players' wages, because the PFA will not accept salary caps. So we have to find a way to make the structures of the clubs and the structures of the funding sustainable. So I'm sure there'll be some strings attached to the money when it does come from the Premier League, and I think it will come. And that may be that the money is linked to going into infrastructure, going into grassroots, going into academies, as opposed to necessarily going into players' pockets. But at the end of the day, we fund an academy currently at a loss. We fund infrastructure at a loss. So all those things, if they can be dealt with by cash coming from the Premier League, then that's obviously good news for Grimsby Town.
Thanks, Nigel. Talking of money, what's the Sky deal worth to you this season, going forward?
I think it's 150, but that's the same for every club. So even if you're selected on a main channel, you don't get anything extra. So every club is selected for a minimum of 20 games, which is great exposure that we've not had before. Found out last week that if you're on the main channel, you also get streamed in the US on CBS to up to 300 million households. So it's amazing reach. I appreciate this frustrations around changes in kick-off times, and everyone's kind of getting used to that. We're monitoring the P&L. So for example, the other week when we had the earlier kick-off, how does that look in terms of the food that we're selling, the drinks that we're selling? So it's early days to be able to see the true P&L around matches that have that early kick-off. But yeah, and we're monitoring the viewing figures as well. So there's no sort of huge financial gain if you're selected, but that visibility and the media value that then comes from that is something that we're closely monitoring.
Well, some intangibles, what you think about, so the TV arc, or what's on that main stand, we can hopefully sell that for a lot more for advertising. There's the reach of, investors seeing our games in America, as an example. I was over there until yesterday, and 3 people asked me about Welcome to Wrexham and had noticed us in the document. So that attention matters from a commercial point of view, which again we haven't realised that yet. But over time that'll be really helpful for us, and hopefully helpful from an investment point of view as well. But the TV, actually one of the things that we've done a really good job collectively at the streaming game. We have a lot of fans in Paris apparently and Malta watching the games, and so our revenue from the streaming was going up. So actually net at the moment we probably haven't made a lot more money, but over time I think it will be helpful.
Yeah, and it moves those commercial deals into a totally different landscape. Some of the deals that were done were before we even knew about a Sky Sports deal. We're now on Sky 20 games a season, and we've just been on, the 2 main events that we've been on in front of a US audience of up to 300 million twice. So again, that media value, so the amount of times that logo is seen on a screen in front of eyeballs is absolutely skyrocketed. So I think for an industry and for all of the football league clubs, it puts us in a totally different ballpark now when we're looking at figures.
And can I just say, from our point of view, we're all becoming Indianapolis Colts fans.
You see that?
I saw that. All the playing staff.
If you've got another question, please raise your hand. This gentleman down the front here has got one. I've got quite a few left as well on this sheet, so we'll try and rattle through as many as we can.
Thank you. Les Bell again. Polly mentioned the match day experience. My match day experience is a 300-mile round trip to see the game. Don't get here every week, obviously. But what I do find is sometimes it's quite difficult to get a ticket at the last minute that hasn't got a restricted view. Are there any plans to do things about that or to expand the ground? Having said that, I think the season ticket take-up is fantastic.
Well, that's a nice-ish problem for us to have. I don't think we're quite there yet in terms of selling out on a regular basis. I think in terms of expanding the ground, if that was the case, if we were selling out every week, then that becomes a higher priority for us. I think we've had some questions in around the corners and expanding into some of those corners. I think previously when it's been talked about, there wasn't such an involvement from the SGSA, which is our ground safety authority, and there's actually quite a lot of complexity that goes into egress, the width of exits, a lot of health and safety. So whilst filling in the corners might seem like the quick win, actually there's quite a lot of detail and the health and safety around expanding the ground on those corners and various bits and pieces. So for the moment, we are as we are. We'll see how attendances go. I would encourage, if you're not doing the release your seats, then do it, because then it helps us to be able to offer more seats without a restricted view. But happy to pick up with you offline in terms of how we can make sure that you're getting the better seat, whether that's on the phone or online, rather than maybe coming into the ticket office on match day. But I'm sure there'll be people around to help you with that.
Thanks. I mean, we have to look at the viability of building, and it costs several £1,000s per seat to add seats to the stadium. So, and if you only get payback on that in 4 or 5 games a season, it takes an awful long time. So it's something that obviously when we're in the Premier League, we'll need to we'll need to follow their standards.
Oh, you won't hear that.
Malcolm Russell for you, Polly. Will the club consider reverting back to the traditional way of numbering shirts? Red numbers on a white background. Many older supporters and Radio Homicide commentators have difficulty identifying the team when numbers are printed over black and white stripes.
So I can't confirm the colour for next season, but yes, we're looking at a much easier to read panel on the back of the shirt. So yourself, including Matt, will be hopefully help with ID of players.
I didn't send in that question, by the way. I can assure you of that. Another question. Gentleman, the lady first of all towards the front here, we'll be with you in a moment. At the back.
Question for Polly, really, or the owners. I have to use a Lewis Smith's ladies' loo near the pontoon stand, and I asked your predecessor the same question, but nothing's happened. The guys here, they've got wives and partners. You wouldn't send your ladies into the loo because you have to queue, not the queue, but it's the flushing, it's the old-fashioned toilets with the box above your head, and you come out and the next lady says, I'm sorry, I can't flush, and the next lady says, I'm sorry, I can't flush, and this goes on and on. And I know you've spent money in other toilet areas, but a lot of ladies go to football now.
Yeah. Firstly, apologies that hasn't been picked up. I know they're looking at it, and it's more around the pressure of the water, and so we're talking to the utility, so it's not something that we can directly control, but we are talking to the utility company to try and increase the flow. We're hoping that we can resolve it this season. We're on the case, and sorry it's not been addressed just yet, but we are aware and we're working on it.
Okay.
Thanks for the question. Gentleman at the back there at the bar.
Don't worry, Jason, it's not to you, mate. This one's for David.
What's your name, sir?
Tapo. David, can you update us on the injuries, when we're likely to get some players back?
Yeah, of course. That's what I think. Obviously, Jake's out for a while. Charles Venom's out for a while. Jordan Davis is probably 4 to 5 weeks away. He's back in the building on Monday. He's done the first part of his rehab at Wrexham. He's back in the building on Monday. Jordan Wright is probably a week away. This time next week, give or take. Who else we got? Curtis Thompson has been out on the grass all week, but not training, so he's in like end stage rehab before he joins in with us at some point. And I know he's feeling much better. Jaden Luke, who we spoke about earlier.
Kieran Green?
Kieran Green is coming along nicely. He will be probably, it's a matter of days, Greeny. Justin is fine. Is that it?
I think so.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you, David.
No problem. You're not from Walsall, are you? Bit late line, but I just thought I'd check.
Another one for you, David, from Dave Roberts. Are there any plans in the future to maybe have an under-23 team, which of course was a successful format under you at Crewe?
No, not particularly. I think that's the end of a highly productive academy, and we've got to make sure that works first. It's not that it doesn't work, it's just it's a really expensive way of doing it. And at Cat 2 level, you've got to play 32 under 23 games. At Cat 3 level, where we're at, we don't have to play that. We're in the reserve cup competition this year, so we've played Chesterfield and we've got Mansfield and Notts County still to play. So we still get enough minutes in the players that haven't played regular minutes in the first team, plus some under-18s players, so there's that bridge, and that works best for us at the minute.
Greg Mortar, have preparations begun already for the January transfer window?
He's a bit late, isn't he? Yeah.
Okay. At what stage are you at then with preparations for January?
We've identified players. We've certainly identified positions, outcomes. It starts off broad because of various factors like injuries and stuff like that, and then it gets narrower and narrower. We've identified positions, players. We are now in the process of doing specific analysis as a group of staff.
How much evolution are you expecting in January?
How much what's
evolution?
Certainly nowhere near the summer. Let's be honest, January transfer windows are more like loan windows. We brought in, I think it was 2 or 3 permanents last January, but that's unusual. There's 1 or 2 things we are looking at in the permanent sense. So yeah, I would imagine small, but not insignificant small. It's a chance to improve, so we'll take the opportunity.
You've got to look at it in multiple windows as well. So we're already looking at the summer next year,
yes.
let alone January.
Is anybody getting a new deal?
Well, that's a good question. You might.
It's not on the sheet, but I thought I'd ask.
You might have some news next week.
Ooh. Can you elaborate more at this stage?
No,
next week. Next week. You might give me a little bit more. I'm not suggesting you tell me who, but
no.
You're in discussions then, are you, with certain players about contract extensions?
Yes.
Okay. I think the important bit for people to maybe give an insight is like the recruitment is possibly the most important thing about this club, right? In terms of thinking how you want to play, thinking about targeting people, making the place attractive. And there's a systemised approach to this now that again, we're looking through the reports that we've got on players, the dossiers we have on players, the data, can we improve, and then can we get hold of people as well. So we don't talk as publicly as we would probably like to for obvious reasons, but it's the thing I think that's changed most in the 3 and a bit years we've been here. There's a real systemised approach to looking at, can we improve on the quality of players that we've got today. And so it's really, I find that really exciting. We had a conversation this afternoon through one of the spreadsheets around players we're targeting for the January and next summer. And again, that for me is the way that we will improve this football club, is having a strategy and be trying to recruit to that and asking ourselves the question, have we got data and objective eyes on players to say what we're bringing in is better than what we had? It just wasn't that way for the first couple of years. And I'm trying to cast aspersions, but there's a process now which gives us confidence that we can keep improving.
And I think that process that we now have with clear roles, responsibilities, that takes a filtered approach, that starts off wide, gets a lot narrower, depending on the game model, the key positions, what you're looking for each position, also explores what's already in the building, what have we got in the academy that's coming through, what are the contract lengths that current players are on, do they need revising, updating. So there's so much that goes into it, obviously depending on how you're doing in the league as well, looking at other leagues across Europe, across the world to see when they're finishing. Again, January does tend to be a loan market, but there are leagues across the world that do finish, that run sort of the calendar year rather than August to May. So you're trying to be strategic, but you also want to be flexible to some opportunities that come up too, and also mindful of injuries. So there's a whole load of stuff that goes into the preparation for it, and you need to be flexible, you need to be nimble throughout the window to execute.
How has Jarson Darley's Van Thorsen settled both on and off the pitch, do you feel?
I think he's settled in as well as could be expected. There's obviously a good player in there. He found things like, believe it or not, training on grass really difficult, because we used to train on AstroTurf pitches. When we brought him and his girlfriend here for the first time, he couldn't believe how green the grass was, how big the stadium was. So things that we hadn't really prepared. So we've done a lot of work on how much a hamburger cost in Iceland compared to how much it cost here. All cost of living stuff to sell the dream. Lots of stuff. We didn't factor in greenness of grass, or actually training on grass, but that's, so we all live and learn. So there's loads of little things. We couldn't get him a car because he's under 25. We didn't see that, and that was a big problem. So he was stuck in a hotel for a few weeks, and that was a big problem for him and us, because we couldn't get him car insurance basically, and rented a car. So there was little things like that that we just got blindsided. Overall though, I think we'd all agree that we've done a fairly good job in him coming in, settling. So for example, a lot of the lads do something now called grounding, which is something I'd never heard of. So after every training session, they all take the boots off and walk on the grass, because they get the energy from the ground, which is big in Iceland apparently. And he does that, and all the lads are then inquisitive, what are you doing? They all do that, and they feel as though they re-energise their body before they go and have some lunch. Whether that's right or not, that I'm not going to knock him. So he's actually brought culture to our culture, and the lads brilliantly have bought into that.
I think it's been nice to see the connection between the Icelandic links in the town as well. So he's been connected with the consulate, he's been connected with some of the fishing industry, some of the other Icelandic nationals that we're involved with or connected with various businesses. So I think hopefully that's made him feel like it's a home from home. And I don't know if you saw the contingent that joined us at a match a couple of weeks ago, but great to see so much support coming over from Iceland for him. And long may that continue.
My favourite thing about him coming over this year, he said it was too hot over here. We don't get many people that say that Cleethorpes and Grimsby is too hot a place, so that was quite funny. The training was really struggling, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, the heat and the fact that because they have got a summer league, their pre-season lasts from December all the way to March. So he has a 3-month pre-season. So that gradually increases over 3 months. We do a really intense 6-week period. So he found that really, really tough. So even though he was coming in the middle of their season, he found the training really tough, really intensive, and really consistently intensive. That was really tough for him. So doing that is a bit like a first year pro doing that, where they go, oh my God, what's just hit me? Oh, we've got to do it again tomorrow. That he had all that, as well as hot, as well as green grass, as well as, you know, all these things, food, no car, fishing, all that. So he had a lot to contend with. I think he's done a really good job personally. I think we've done a good job as a football club as well as could be expected, and I think it's only going to help him going forward. You know, because of all these little things that, you know, we didn't really think of, but a lot of things we did. Yeah, I think he's done. He should be proud of how he's settled, really.
And you can see that we haven't seen the best of him yet. There's a player in there, and he's going to keep improving. I think he's going to be an amazing asset for the club over time. He's an extraordinary talent, and he's not quite there yet. I think
I agree with that.
There's plenty more to come from him.
Are you monitoring any other players in Iceland?
All over Europe, Iceland's definitely one of the places, yeah. And it's a nice intuitive connection, as we've said, about the fishing industry. And so they get us, and they know about Grimsby as well, which is interesting. But we're not exclusively looking at the Nordics. There's countries all around Europe that we're interested in.
This is from a disabled fan, not put the name to it. One for Polly. Can the club explain the policy of refusing exit onto Harrington Street after a game, and forcing visible and non-visible disabled persons to walk behind the pontoon out the ground to Grimsby Road and back up Blundell Avenue to get to their cars? It's bad enough there are no disabled parking facilities at the ground. If trouble with away fans is anticipated, leave them in the stands for 10 to 15 minutes after full time to let home fans get away.
So all of the plans post-match, pre-match are done in consultation with the police and the SGSA. And just on those few occasions, so those high-profile games like the Doncaster game, maybe Bradford, we have to put plans in place for the safety primarily of our fans. So it's only done with those intentions, is to look after the safety of those people. So appreciate it's a frustration. It maybe puts people out of. It's inconvenient, let's say, but it is really done with safety in mind.
Okay. This is from Sharon Skipworth for you, Polly. When are the ladies' toilets in the pontoon likely to be refurbished? On match days, they're a one flush wonder. Probably similar to that question.
We got that one already.
Yeah.
All the glamorous questions.
Yeah, that was more for the pontoon, I think, rather than this stand. I think you were referring to this stand, were you? Or was it the pontoon?
Lower.
The lower. So it's the part, and it comes under the same umbrella. What you were saying before. Any other questions? Oh, there's an enthusiastic response. Alan here.
Yeah. I'm just. I used to work here as a
the microphone. Thanks.
I used to work here as the football intelligence officer many years ago, and I just wondered now, what is the relationship like with the police, and how does the policing bill impact on the resources?
Yeah. So it's better than it ever has been, and we've worked really hard at it. Clearly, policing can be really expensive. And the matches get categorised, I think it's A, B and C, or 1, 2 and 3. And we only have one at the highest level where we need the most policing in. So that's really, really good compared to the national average. So I'm really pleased that our staff have had a collaborative approach with the police to make sure that we're not having to spend a huge amount. Clearly, safety is the priority, but if there are ways that we can mitigate it to make sure that we're putting practices in place so that fans are safe pre, during and post game, then we will do. But yeah, we're in a good place and we're working hard to keep it there.
We're also concentrating on trying to get as many of our own stewards as we can, which again, if you get your own stewards versus agency stewards that come in on a sort of match by match basis, then the training is much more consistent. And Dave White, who runs that for us, runs a super tight ship.
I know we've talked about the ground so far, but can I give you credit for taking out those posts in the main stand? I can now actually see both goals whilst commentating, which makes a massive difference, not just for me, but for fans around me. I'm sure it also makes a big difference. And John Tonder's chuffed to bits that they've been taken out after he's hung up his microphone. So
well, you might see as well,
he keeps reminding me.
In the press box, we've done some work on that as well. So just the whole main stand is looking so much smarter. Clean liquor paint, just around the grounds, a lot of the areas look really smart now. So yes, of course, it needed to be safe. We needed to make sure we could still open it to improve the viewing experience as well was key, but it just the whole place is looking an awful lot smarter.
I am conscious of time. Thanks very much for giving up yours tonight on the eve of a game. We appreciate it. I'm trying to do these questions justice as well. One from Trevor Hewson as we sort of wind things down. If you've got a final question, please put your hand up in the air. Can we look to have handrails in the stairways in the pontoon, please? There are a number of people who struggle to get up and down the steps, including my old dad. It would really help, says Trevor.
Yeah, so I think there was handrails in the past. They were taken out because it significantly affected the delay in people getting in and out of the ground. Again, if that's a topic that's really important to people, that's a priority and a lot of people need it, let us know and we can look at reinstalling them.
Thanks, Trevor. Any more questions from the floor?
We've got none.
Okay.
Mine's a ground-related question as well. Earlier on, there was an ambition for the championship mentioned, which is brilliant. But is that really sustainable on a ground capacity of around 9,000? My question is there a vision for how Blundell Park can be developed to address that capacity issue? It might be step by step, and it might take time. But does that vision? Are there any plans in place?
So I think we've got a series of work that's required over the next few years. So we need still work in the Osmond, in the pontoon as well. Naturally, with a ground of this age, it does need that constant investment and that constant work on it to make sure that we can keep operating and offer a positive match day experience. So yeah, we'll continue to invest in it as required. Obviously, let's see how it goes on the pitch, and our vision is to climb up through the leagues, plural, men's and women's, and not just putting a cap on League One. Let's see where we go and hopefully grow with it.
Thanks for the question.
There is an implicit assumption though that crowds will get bigger. To be proven. Our capacity with third in the league was 67%. Capacity, so there's a long way to go. Varying by games, obviously, but some games we sell out. Most of them we don't, right? So I'd be interested to see what people think is the natural ceiling for attendance in a town of 110,000 people. It might be 8,000, it might be 9,000. So we're committed. I don't want us to move from Blundell Park, but I'm not convinced at the moment that there's an economic case for building a bigger stadium here or somewhere else.
It used to be said that the capacity, the attendances of a football club would be around about 10% of the area. So that would be about 13,000. Okay. If that does still apply.
I'd love to see that data, yeah, because if you look at Bournemouth, Bournemouth I think is 24,000 in the Premier League. So it's something like 3% of the revenue often. So
I think it's lower than that.
It's about 15,000.
15, is it?
Luton's about 11.
So
they've both been.
I'd love to force our hand with selling out every game and an economic case for building a new stand. At the moment, there just isn't 45-50 million quid flushing on to build a new stadium. And if we've looked at the options on different areas of the ground as well. We could expand on that, but ultimately there's a question of we can't build it in the hope that it'll be filled. So if we're at 8,500 here every week, then I think we'd need to look at that. But topping up at 7 2 or 3 times a season does not get that to top of our priorities. As uncomfortable as that is for people, it just isn't a priority because there isn't an economic case for it. I would love for people to force their hand that we're selling out every game, but I just can't see that happening.
I think though that you're only going to exceed the 7 when there's a big club coming that fills the Osmond.
Yeah, that's fair.
So you need to look at the home end capacity and what the percentage of that is, not the whole ground.
Yeah. But we could turn it around though. If today, if we made the Osmond available, which we have done for some of those low attendance away fans, it still isn't filled, right? So I think the argument can be reversed as well, is that when we do open the Osmond, we end up not having to. We like the opportunity to give away 600-700 tickets to kids that wouldn't come normally, because there isn't the demand there today as well. So,
there's also the right that the away team can have 10%. So even if they don't sell them, that's their right, which means unfortunately there could be tickets there that we could have sold to home fans, but it's the right of the away fan to take those. So we hope that each of our opposition is understanding of that position, but they don't have to be.
There's a little, just going full circle to the regulator question. We personally would love for some of that money to be forced into stadium improvements. You know, as a club, we'd love to have access to extra capital that's specific for that and is given for that rather than players' wages, because but there isn't an economic case at the moment to find that money to do all the things that we want to do. So if the regulator enforces that, I think that would be a win for us as a club, that we can spend that on the stadium, build that capacity in the hope that it'll be filled. But at the moment there just isn't an economic case for it.
One for Polly.
Have you got any influence on that then, Jason, in terms of what the football regulator?
No more than anyone else. I mean, we speak to different clubs, the people in the regulator conversations, and politicians as well. But to say we have exerted influence wouldn't be true.
How has the 21st group contributed to the club in terms of recruitment, commercial and overall strategy at GTFC?
So the 21st group was used certainly for the first 3 seasons. Jason and Andrew working with the club and developed a strategy, but just on the football part. I've worked in football all of my career, and I felt quite confident taking that forwards, but also then widening it so it's not just a strategy on football, but it's also operational, it's looking at the infrastructure, it's looking at the staff. So I think it really helped bring the club forward in the previous 3 years, but I think where we are now with some of the software and then the knowledge and experience that we've got around the table, to use our own strategy, our own knowledge and resource to shape that strategy going forward.
Do you still have a tie with them at all though?
Not anymore, no. We finished the work with the 21st group. I think it got us to a really good place, but it's allowed us now, under our own knowledge and experience, to kick on from there.
Was that always the plan?
Well, it was actually we had 18 months with them, so it wasn't exactly at the start. It was 18 months, and the plan was to help us with look at the data science side, build an evidence-based culture, which we've done. It was access to some data. Well, we've got that access elsewhere now. And then the third bit was the strategy. The strategy won't change for the next few years, but importantly, we've got the people in place now that can lead that and deliver that, and actually can probably write the strategy in future as well. So it's a good relationship. I still speak to them every couple of weeks, and that they're friends. But it wasn't required that we keep paying them, quite frankly, for the work was completed, and we've got access to the stuff that we wanted.
Was it a costly relationship?
Yeah, it was.
How much?
A lot.
Okay. Can you give the fans any more insight?
No, it was in the hundreds of thousands, so not trivial.
Per season was that, or over the course of the?
Yeah, it's like
I'm a journalist, that's why.
It was in the exams.
Trying to find some.
It was a considerable number, and it was based over a couple of seasons.
Okay. We like to get the facts. We like to get some facts. We like to get some facts. Any more questions? I'm quiet out there. Well, thanks for your time. Sorry for the hard questions at the end.
Can I just say thanks for coming tonight, but also thanks to Matt. Matt's done a great job tonight.
And good luck tomorrow. Walsall, how are you viewing this one?
Tough game tomorrow.
Yeah.
They're a good team. I was just saying to some guys in the break, I'm always honest with the players. If I don't think they're a good team, I'll tell them they're not very good. I've told them Walsall are good. They are good. Their 2 high midfielders are really good. We stop them, stop crosses in the box, stop direct balls into Jimmy on that. They've got a chance.
Wish good luck tomorrow and for the remainder of the season. Thanks very much. Cheers.